Welcome to the Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Hey, everybody, it's Holden back here again with the Sober Unicorn. I hope everybody's having a fabulous day, and if you're not, I definitely hope it gets better. Today, we are being joined by Skye. How are you, Skye?
I'm pretty good today.
Good. Well, Skye and I actually met via Instagram. I put a shout out post looking for guests, and she's one of many that reached out to me, and I'm so happy to get you on and kind of share your story and kind of discuss with everybody because it seems that you have quite a bit going for you.
Yeah. So, I just to touch on what we talked about before recording. The reason that I found you is because we share a love of unicorns, and I have always felt like unicorns are my spirit guides. And but yeah, what I have going on right now is I am a coach. I took alcohol out of the driver's seat of my life on January 7th, 2018. And since then, there's been a whole lot of self work and self discovery. And so now I'm actually a coach that helps other, mostly women identifying people to take alcohol out of the driver's seat of their life.
Which is very important because driving and alcohol do not go hand in hand during any circumstance. So why don't you
Yeah.
kind of give everybody like a background? Of course, of course, now you're a coach and helping people with alcoholism. So what did your alcoholism look like, and what finally made you get sober?
So it's interesting because I never know really where to start my story, but I was a teacher for much of my adult life. I taught high school science, and so I was like a working professional. I was at the time of my heaviest drinking. I was teaching at a high school in the inner city. I was getting a master's degree. I was newly divorced, and I would say probably 5 nights a week, I was going out to the bar or having people over at my house, or maybe sometimes by myself, and getting often blackout drunk. And then waking up in the morning and going to work, like trying believing that I was pulling this off, like sort of living this double life, and pulling this off. And so that was probably at the lowest of my low. But I started drinking when I was a teenager. I think I was 14 when I had my first drink, just kind of experimenting with friends. And, um, what I found with alcohol is that um, it softened the edges of my anxiety. So I was a smart kid, like kind of on the border of nerd, not nerd. I mean, I definitely wasn't cool. And so, I found that drinking leveled the playing field. So if I could get drunk with these people, then all of a sudden we were all friends. And and also if I could get drunk, then my weirdness didn't seem so weird anymore. So even into my adulthood, I felt like if I was stone cold sober, I just felt really strange being around people and talking to people. And I don't know if I actually was or if it's just something that I was feeling, but like I could walk into a bar with a cigarette in one hand and a vodka tonic in the other, and like, bam, I was queen of the world. I like, all of a sudden everything that was weird about me became cool because I was like drinking at the bar and holding court, and like dancing on the tables and stuff. And so I think, early on in my drinking life, I think that's a lot of what attracted me to it, is this ability to escape from the self-consciousness in my mind and just, numb it and let it all go.
It
And
seems that a lot of people use alcohol as a to knock off that anxiety, social anxiety, starting conversations with new people. Because I know for me, I going out trying to hit on somebody, I could never do that sober. I mean, I still have troubles trying to do that sober.
Mhm.
But when you're plastered drunk, you don't give a shit about the rejection or the weird looks from people because you're just like, well, I'm here and I'm having a good old time.
Yeah. I truly believed that about myself. I believed that alcohol made me a more awesome version of myself. Like I believed that to be true. And and that was one of the biggest challenges when I decided to quit was that, oh my God, if I take alcohol out, like, who will I be? I will be like boring and lame and like all of those things. I believed that. Spoiler alert, like, that's not actually true. Like, I actually now know that I am much more interesting, fun to be around as a sober person. But yeah, like I could never go on dates if I wasn't drinking. And so I would attract those people to me. So like all of my friends and all of my romantic partners were also um they were at the very least okay with heavy alcohol use if they weren't also, drinking themselves into a blackout oblivion as well.
But I mean, we were always good at finding those people that would drink with us in the
Yeah.
blackout because then it made us feel better about our own drinking. Um, so of course, what was the final straw for you to be like, oh shit, something needs to change?
I started drinking at 14 and when I quit drinking I was 42. So there were a lot of moments that probably should have been the final straw, but they weren't. And so the final straw actually was when my kids were 2 and 4. So I had been out of the classroom for 4 years. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And there's a huge culture around mommy wine time and all of that stuff. And so I was deep into that. My kids were they were little and they were in diapers and they were crying and it was hard and like all I used to be a professional woman and now I was knee deep in poop and juice boxes and like it was really hard and so I would drink. um and I remember laying on the floor in the playroom one morning just so hungover, probably still drunk. And my kids were, running around playing and just laying there, my head pounding, just hoping that nobody needed me and feeling like maybe this isn't good. Like, this isn't really the mom I want to be. And, the final straw was seeing myself on Facebook. Somebody taking a video of me out at a bar. I went out for like a mom's night out thing. And so somebody had taken a video because Jane Lynch, the famous, amazing Jane Lynch, she
Love
was
Jane
at that
Lynch.
bar. And so I remember being at that bar, like going up to her, and I believe she's sober. And so, like, I remember going up to her, just slobbering drunk, like, I'm your biggest fan. I love you. And her looking at me like, get this lady away from me. Well, somebody had taken a video of this bar and put it on Facebook and tagged me. And so there I was. I saw myself the next day. And I thought, wow, that is not the woman I want to be. And like that, it was that moment that finally clicked. I think it was, everything adding up over time. But it was my kids and then finally seeing myself with some clarity, like seeing who I actually was presenting to the world and realizing that's not the person that I wanted to present to the world.
Yeah, I mean, what's so funny is I have a similar situation with somebody famous. I don't know if you know Michelle Visage. She's from one of the
Yes.
judges of RuPaul. But
Yes.
I was drunk as hell at Pegasus in San Antonio. Saw a woman that looked like her, thought it was a drag queen, and was like, "Oh my god, you're serving such Michelle Visage realness right now." And she's like, "Thank you." And come to find out, it was her being in town for Rocky Horror, I think, with Alaska and some of the other queens. But it's that's hilarious. But yeah, I absolutely love Jane Lynch. So, when coming into, of course, you decide to get sober, for one your kids and for two you not liking who you saw from the previous night at the bar. Did you seek out a program? Did you seek out self help books? I mean, what did you seek out?
um I never really resonated with AA. And when I looked for resources, that was all I could find. So I ordered self-help books off Amazon. I ordered 3 self-help books and Um, they arrived actually about 7 days after I had initially decided I was going to quit, because it only took me 6 days to open like 5 bottles of wine and get blackout drunk again. So that next morning, um, after I woke up in a bed soaked with my own urine, once again, as a 42-year-old woman, mom of two in the other room, that was like it. And so the very first thing I did that morning actually was look at my phone, as we all do, right? And I checked my Facebook feed. And the first thing I saw on there was a post from an old friend of mine, this guy that I knew in high school. We'd never dated, we were just really good friends. And his post said, this is my 5-year sobriety date. And like that was the very first thing I saw that morning. And I believe in signs, and I believe that the universe lines up to like put us on the path that we're supposed to be on. And so I decided, okay, this must mean something. And so I reached out and I messaged him and said, hey, saw your post, thinking that today might be the day I need to quit drinking. And he messaged me back right away. And that ended up being a huge, huge lifeline. I think partly because just sending someone a message and like sort of saying it quote unquote out loud in that way made it real. Now I all of a sudden had someone I was accountable to. And then I started reading this book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, which was a book that completely changed my relationship with alcohol, or how I viewed it in my life. So that identity that I had about that alcohol made me this more awesome version of myself, and that without it, I was losing my best friend, I was losing everything about myself. Like I would be bland, beige, sober. That book really, really helped me to unravel a lot of those beliefs in my mind. And so that I realized I didn't need it that much anymore.
And I have seen The Naked Mind. I believe she has a second book out called like the 30-day experiment, if I'm not mistaken. I purchased it. Um, it's sitting in my nightstand, have not touched it whatsoever. Um, I because I suck out AA in order to help getting sober. And it has stuck, but with recent relapses that have happened, um, I find that I don't I don't crave the drinking like I used to. I mean, hell, with when I relapsed, I didn't relapse off of drinking. Those are the other substances. So now I'm realizing that there's more to it than just the substance abuse for me. And so I want to kind of do the 30-day experiment, but like it takes so much for me to just sit down and focus and try to do anything for myself. But you said that you're kind of like a coach when it comes to this 30-day or the Naked Mind for Annie. So what does that entail? Because of course it's a book, a self-help book that you purchase and do yourself. So how do you turn yourself into a coach for it?
So I ended up getting certified through her program in 2021. And so she walks you through, like in the book, and this is a lot of what we do in coaching. So there's these beliefs, these commonly held beliefs. I need alcohol to have fun. Alcohol helps me relax. You know, all these different things that people commonly believe about drinking. And so once you start questioning that, like, is that really true? Or where did I come up with that in the first place? Like, at what point did I start to believe that I needed alcohol in order to have fun, or like, go on a date, right?
Of course, I mean you don't need alcohol to, I mean, have fun, but dating is extremely difficult because of course, being a queer man, I go on these apps and every time he's like, "Oh, let's hang out, let's grab a drink." And my first response is like, I don't immediately be like, "Oh, I'm sober, back away, the devil." But I'm like, "Oh, like I don't drink, but we can most definitely hang out." Like I'm totally okay with going to a bar. Um, that's just my own journey. I'm not recommending anybody that's getting trying to get sober right now go to a bar, um, but the moment I say that I don't drink, it's like these people look at me like I just have like shat on their floor in their living room. I mean, it's insane on how much the dating world or the extracurricular life outside of work is surrounded by alcohol.
Yeah, there's a huge stigma to it. And when I was a teacher, so happy hours and teachers go together like hand in hand. And it was a big practice of our self-care. And so as a teacher, excuse me, as a teacher, you'd take on all this stress during the day and then you'd go out to a happy hour and you just numb it all away. And that was your way of taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely self-care is very important with everybody. I think it's we I mean, as you said, like you used alcohol as self-care during the teaching era. I know when I was in the funeral business, a lot of people do the same thing. I mean, funeral directors, embalmers, they deal with emotion and seeing death on a daily basis, and that was their way of kind of decompressing from the day. It's unfortunate that in that industry, 70% of people in that industry have substance abuse, even beyond liquor. I mean, a lot of it's like meth and cocaine and heroin. Um, but self care, like for you, how did you use alcohol as self care in, of course, your active addiction? And how did your self care change over time?
So, I think we're fed this bill of goods in our society that self-care is these things that are numbing ourselves. Like take a bath and have a bottle of champagne or treat yourself to ice cream or Netflix. Self-care is like you sit and watch a movie, which all those things are fine, but they're all methods of escape. They're all ways to take your stress and anxiety and like shove them down and pack them away. And, they don't go anywhere. It just piles up and piles up and piles up unless you actually deal with them and like process them, complete your stress cycle instead of taking your stress and shoving it down and then numbing out with whatever your numbing tool of choice is. And I think that happens a lot of times when people quit drinking is that they don't have their usual numbing tool, so they seek something else out that's not quite so bad. It's like Oreos or social media or even work. Like you can put yourself into work so much so that you avoid like all of your other crap that you need to deal with in your personal life. You know what I mean? And so that is all like false self-care. And I think that what we really need to develop as tools, especially in sobriety, is real self-care, the stuff that nourishes us and energizes us and makes us feel like fulfilled, like builds us back up and makes you ready to like go out and take on the world. So like finding whatever that is in your life, for me, it's yoga, it's hiking, um, it's every once in a while, it's going out with like sitting with my friend and like really talking, laughing, connecting, not sitting with my friend and getting drunk like it used.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's crazy how when you go anywhere, talking about conversations with other people, you go anywhere and everybody's on their phone. I mean, I was just in Atlanta and I go to dinner with somebody and I look over to the table next to one. It's a family with like a mom, grandparents, and like two kids, and all of them are on their phone. I'm like, can we not like still have a conversation like about the world, politics, religion, like I mean, or anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be about something super deep like that. But I think that's what we miss a lot in this world nowadays. It's just human connection. I mean, I know trying to schedule for podcast episodes. I mean, just an hour conversation with somebody can kind of sometimes be very difficult to schedule um, because of work. So, I mean, of course, you said yoga, you said hiking. What else do you do for self care?
Well, I just like what you say about connection. So they say the opposite of addiction is connection. And I think that is one of the biggest things about all of recovery support groups is like the most important piece there is like being with people that understand your story and understand where you're coming from. And so I think, even though that I didn't use like an AA group, that connection that I made with that friend of mine over Facebook, like just being seen, is a huge thing.
That's what I
And
was
one
gonna
of the
ask was, of course, you didn't seek out AA, and of course, beyond the friend that was celebrating his 5 year sobriety, like, where do you find your sober support? Is it within the Naked Mind group? I mean, is it elsewhere?
yeah, it's partly in the Naked Mind group, and also I found that my friend group shifted. Like just not even necessarily intentionally, but I started connecting with people that I hadn't connected with as much because they didn't drink as much. And so they weren't in my like go-to going out group. But um after I stopped drinking, my friendships with these other people started growing. And so I found I guess you could say it was sober support in other ways because they were people that weren't using alcohol, so they were already doing these other kinds of self-care things. Like I found friends in my yoga groups and like these women's retreats and stuff like that that then helped me build those other tools so that alcohol just became less and less of a thing that I felt like I needed because now I was actually like nourishing myself.
Most definitely. I think I tell people, I mean, I don't, and of course, I suck out the 12-step fellowship, but I don't push that onto anybody. I mean, I think at the end of the day, whether it's smart recovery, AA, doing it on your own, as long as you get sober, the goal is being met, and taking care of yourself. But I think it's so beneficial to step into one meeting, get that list of phone numbers, and just use those individuals as support, as like that initial sober support. I mean, you had your initial sober support from the friend on Facebook, but if you didn't have that or that person to reach out to and finally hear yourself or see yourself typing, I need help, I need to stop, who knows where you would be today. I mean, you could be back on the floor, or um, with the kids running around, and or it could have taken you a little bit longer to get sober without having these people to reach out to and just talk to when you're struggling. Um, so I would say like that's out of any fellowship, Naked Mind, AA, CMA, that is a huge, huge, huge takeaway. Just having that those people that can understand that you connect with and find support in.
Yeah, and as a coach, sometimes I'm initially their very first sober connection. It's kind of like a sponsor relationship in a way where it's, I'm the person that's already walked through the fire and walked the coals and on the other side. So I might be the only person they've really told some of this stuff about. A lot of the people that come to me are professionals. And so they're doing kind of what I was doing is they're leading this double life. The people in their world don't have any idea the depth of their struggle with alcohol, and so they don't, they're not yet feeling comfortable to talk to the people that are close to them in their life about what they're dealing with. And
No,
and I
that
think
is
you're
true.
right. When you find a group of people that have gone through the same thing, no matter what walk of life they are, but they've experienced that piece of addiction in common, it's powerful. It's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine down in San Antonio. We met at a sober event here in Dallas, and I'm starting to struggle with other things beyond liquor. And I was kind of talking to him and kind of explaining to him my thought process and this and that. And he's like, and I was thinking that like I'm like the bottom of the barrel with what I was doing. And he's like, girl, like that is nothing. He's like, that's it. That's all you did. He's like, that was breakfast for me. So it's insane on how we think, like when trying to disclose the depths of our addiction to people, we feel that we were in our darkest places, and yet these people, other individuals, can immediately relate to where we were. Maybe they were even in a lower place and be like, girl, that was it. Like, I mean, you were a professional. During my addiction, I was always able to maintain employment. Other people weren't. Other people suffered homelessness and had to get sober during that to build themselves back up. Um, and so it's like if I when I see these people and I'm like, well, shit, if they could be homeless for a year, get sober while on the streets, build
Mm.
themselves back up and have this like beautiful, successful, happy, joyous life. I'm like, well, shit. I mean, at least I have a job, type of thing. I mean, it could always be worse. I mean, I used to drive blackout drunk on a daily basis, but
Yeah,
yet
same.
I'm thankful I never got a
I
DUI. I mean,
did. I did. Yep. And I
I
hid it from everybody because I was so ashamed.
I don't know how I didn't. I mean, again, probably by the grace of God, because I mean, I
Mm.
lived 25 minutes from the bar that I was going to, that I created as my home bar.
Uh-huh.
Um, so you, of course, you wrote a book. Let me pull up the title. Can I'm having a blonde moment all this morning. It's The Unexpected Alchemy. It's Poems of Addiction and Awakening.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me about like what made you want to create this book?
Well, poetry is one of the ways now, one of my tools now that I process stress, anxiety, and shame. And so after I used to write poetry a lot when I was a kid in high school, and I realized now that I was writing it in high school as a way to process high school because high school sucked and it was hard. And so I was writing poetry then and it was helping me. And then it kind of disappeared from my life for a while. But after I got sober, all of these shame stories started coming up, like things I had done in drinking that I had shoved down and numbed with more drinking. They started rising to the surface and asking me to look at them again and like, hey, this is some trauma that you've never processed. It's time to process me now. So I began writing poetry as a way to process these old shame stories, as a way to tell my story without having to actually tell my story. So the great thing about a poem is that I don't have to say, okay, first this happened and then this happened and then this happened. But I can take a look at an event that maybe was traumatic or a time in my life that was difficult and write a poem about it. It's more about the emotion and the feeling of that experience. And in doing so, it transformed it. So I call it alchemy because the poetry took old shame and old trauma and changed it, transformed it into something else, into wisdom and beauty. And so I wrote this book as a way to tell my story. So it's like quit lit, but it's not your typical quit lit memoir. It's poetry. It's my memoir in the form of poetry. And so I offer it to other people that may be struggling either with addiction or really anything, any of the life's challenges, um, as a way to kind of like what you were saying before, like you're not the only one that's been through this. Like I've been through this. Here's my story. I'm going to share it with you so that you maybe don't feel so alone, or so to give you the courage to take an honest look at some of your dark stuff in your past and allow it to come out, see the light, because shame cannot exist in the light. So take it out, put it in the light, like reprocess it so that it's not in there like causing you more stress and more anxiety. I was just listening to the episode with Chelsea about relapse, and like that key in there is that so much of the reason that people end up relapsing is because they still have this unprocessed stuff that they haven't been able to deal with. And so over time it just builds up like a pressure cooker until bam, I just want to go back to my old tool and numb that again. And so um I really found great healing power in writing these poems in order to release myself from a lot of that. So
Yeah,
that's where it
and
came.
what's great with it being poems rather than a straight memoir is the fact that people can pick this up when feeling a certain way or feeling certain emotions and just read two or three of them and like really kind of sit with their thoughts with those poems rather than like a book. For me, when it comes to memoirs, like I try to read dry, and it's like if you're not reading it consistently all the way through from start to finish within a few days, you kind
Yeah.
of lose where the story was. And at least as you said with poems, like you could pick it up, read three or four of them, set it down for a week, and then pick it up again, um, which allows your brain to kind of process. And and really feel the emotion that you had while writing them. I mean, if anybody's interested in the book, is it available via Amazon or?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Can I read you the first one real quick?
Of
It's super
course.
short. Okay. So this one's called Sloshed. I'm a wide mouthed solo cup, slinging round an S curve, waking up in a hotel room and more than once a hallway. The dregs of my brain drag my body like a corpse. See, I lost keys, like morals, like scruples, like scholarships and chances, always coming to on the other side of the world. A circumstance claims its victim, but not me. I was busy co creating my own abyss, a seasick dinghy riling up the waves. All I wanted was to feel good on the way to hell and make a new best friend in the unisex bathroom. And here I am, curled up, fetal, trying to find a heartbeat in the dirt and begging the earth to take me back. Blackout promises don't mean a damn thing.
That is true because every time I was blacked out, I would be like, I can't do this anymore. I have to stop. And then the next day, by like noon or 1 p.m., I were already texting all my friends, "Hey, are we meeting up at the bar today?" It's
Yeah.
all these empty, false promises and things we would tell ourselves when we are at that brink of drinking, and then the next day, it's that need because we're not, as you said, we're not coping with our trauma, we're not dealing with it, we're not facing it. And
Mhm.
that's the one thing about sobriety. Don't get me wrong, I love sobriety, but
Mhm.
I'm like, shit, man, that trauma was 15 years ago.
Right.
So
Right.
you
But 15 years ago, you didn't deal with it. So, yeah, there you go. In sobriety, you got to deal with all that shit. But that's the thing. I feel like also that's sort of the thing they never tell you. I mean, like maybe they do tell you. They probably do tell you. You just like, I wasn't listening. That, hey, sobriety is not going to be all unicorns and rainbows. It's going to be very painful sometimes.
Yes, and painful is an emotionally painful, not
Yes,
physically.
right.
Don't get beat up in sobriety.
No, no, you actually feel way better physically.
Exactly. So of course you went from um I mean, being hungover in the playroom floor with your kids running around and waking up in your own urine that day. What does your day-to-day life look like now that you're sober and you're not having to wake up with this overbearing, like, kind of dark cloud over your head?
I'm so busy and it's so much fun. So I'm starting my own business. Um, I'm writing another book. I have another book coming out in November. It's a guided journal. So I've been creating, I've been doing my business, I've been seeing clients, which has been amazing to like watch other people come out the other side. And I volunteer at my kids' school every week and it's just like it's so busy and so fun and I would have never really pictured this, but I'm really enjoying myself and I've got better friends now than I did because they're real. Like they're based on real shit and not just drinking.
Oh, I say that shit all the time. Well, right before I say that, is it seems like now you are able to be involved and being present in your kids' lives rather than just existing. I
Yes.
mean, because while they were playing, you were doing mommy wine culture, and then mommy wine culture turned into 5 bottles. And so now it's when your children are playing, you can actually see their joy, and you can get joy from it, and not have to drown out their crying or the mommy I fell and hit my knee.
Yeah, you know what? And they have changed because my son was 4 when I quit drinking. So he was old enough to know to see me and my husband too, who is now sober also, but he was old enough to see us and remember us in that way of being angry. We were so angry all the time. And our relationship now, like my relationship with my son now is amazing. Like the love that he has for me is so big and I know that it wouldn't be the same. He would still love me, but it wouldn't be the same if I was still drinking by any means.
Exactly, exactly. I think kids, no matter how young or old the children are, people don't realize how much they can sense the
Yeah.
hurt in that individual. I mean, of course, you go to cry, your kid immediately probably is running up to you, be like, "Mommy, what's going on?" Because
Mhm.
they can sense the feelings in their parents. But going into friendships, I think the friendships created in sobriety are so much more authentic than the ones drinking. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, I still speak to some of the friends that I drank with, but if my friends that I was drinking with don't hear from me in a month, they're not texting me saying, "Hey, it's been a month. Like, what's going on?" But shit, the people that I keep in recovery, 3 days go by and they're not getting a text from me. They're like, "Hey, you good? Like, do it. Well, this is what I do. If you type in wellness check in your GIF bar on your phone or GIF, however you want to pronounce it, there'll be Wanda Sykes from In Living Color knocking on the door saying wellness check. And so if I don't hear from my people in recovery, that's what I'll send out. Just like if you're busy and going through some stuff, I get it. Or if you're working like crazy, but just know that I'm here. Just know that if you need to talk, the door is open. But the friendships that I've created in sobriety have been much more real, much more authentic, and it's not even on selfish terms because the only thing we want to gain from each other is to see each other succeed.
Yeah. And that's so true. It's like that lifting each other up thing is the it's so fulfilling. It's so powerful to see other people like really really rediscover who they are and wake up to themselves. Like that is the greatest joy that I can feel.
Exactly. So before we end the episode, is there anything that you haven't stated that you would like to tell everybody?
Well, if you want to get a hold of me, you can find me at soulstruthcoaching.com. That's Souls Truth Coaching. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, Souls Truth Coaching.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Skye, for joining us today. I greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been really good to talk to you.
Thank you. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day, okay?
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober-owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.